I'm Tyler LeMasters. This is the Pulse of Spokane. Welcome to the show. We have Shayne Swenson today. He is a exceptionally talented artist. Yeah, let's just get right into it. We were just talking about just the kind of the artist community and how things can be um, deeper meanings and how people can sometimes try to look for, they're just a little pretentious, with their art. And you know, we don't know each other before this, but basically the thing that really draws me to your art is that you seem to be pursuing mastery of the skills, specifically of portrait art, just for the sake of art. Yeah, it's pretty impressive. Yeah, what's
It might have something to do with the fact that I have poor social skills too. So, yeah, I guess that's a good way to put it. That I'm doing it for the sake of art, but I think it's more of I have like an obsessive personality. So maybe that's just what it is. I don't know.
what's the fascination with, because you do seem like you're one of these guys that gets locked onto something.
Unfortunately,
and then that's just your life.
Yeah,
which is great. That's how good things come about. But like, what's your obsession?
my
with
wife would
art?
not agree that that's a good thing because sometimes I have a tendency.
Well, she would if you were obsessed with her.
Yeah, well, I am. But there's room for other things. No, yeah, I don't know. I mean, part of the reason why people do art now, what I was saying before, we started about art being, you have people in the art community that are very pretentious, and there's been documentaries made about it. I think Banksy did some. I forget the name of it. I think it's that Exit Through the Gift Shop or something.
Yeah,
I think that's the one where he took just some random dude and turned him into this like phenom in LA or something like that. I think that's the right one. But anyway, the art community in general, there's a tendency to try to present yourself as this influential artist.
Deep.
Yeah, this like super deep
Existential.
person that has something important to say to society or whatever. And unfortunately, I've never really had those ambitions to be that sort of an artist. I've always been fascinated with art, sort of almost in like just the technical aspects of it. Like I'll look at Bouguereau or one of the old masters, and there's just something. The magical thing about it to me is, how did they do that? Like how did someone like Caravaggio, how did he paint a painting that looks like that? And nobody did that before him. There was nobody came along and influenced him to do his paintings in that way. Now he had his influences, right. Obviously everybody does. But there are certain people throughout the history of humanity, throughout every culture, that come along that do something that's so unique. And I don't know, I look at people like him or Rembrandt or whoever, people watching this, names that everyone would recognize.
Right.
And I look at that and I go, how did they do that? And to me, the fun part isn't necessarily the end product. It's not really the art. It's trying to figure out and sort of back engineer how they did that. So
right.
I don't know.
Well, everyone wants to be, it feels like everyone wants to be Pablo Picasso now, right? They want to have that really unique, deconstructive piece where they can talk about the meaning of the piece.
Right.
But to me, Picasso is allowed to do that because he was classically trained.
Right.
Right. By the time he got to the point in his life where he started deconstructing, he had already gone to one of the best, I think, what was it, in Florence or I don't know, Paris or something like that. But he'd gone to one of the best art schools in the world and learned how to train classically. And that's kind of like the height of art at that point in time, as far as getting as far as skills can take you. Right.
Yeah, the atelier is like the fancy word for it. It's like French. It's just a French word for, I don't know what it means. It's school or something like that. I don't know. I don't speak
Great.
French.
Thanks
but
for that French lesson.
Yeah. But yeah, what's interesting is that Picasso, like I'm not a huge fan of Picasso, but a lot of those guys that came along and sort of like threw off the traditions and the techniques that they were taught. Monet was kind of that way. When people bring up Picasso, I always say Picasso's great, but if you want if you want someone that sort of retained the virtuosity of the academic methods of, French or Flemish or whatever school they train under, John Singer Sargent is sort of the guy you want to look to, because he didn't just do line paintings with lines, like contour lines and stuff. He did these masterful, beautiful paintings, these it's like impressionistic realism, where I remember I finally got to see a Sargent painting in person in San Diego a couple of years ago with my wife. And I mean, we lucked out. I don't know if you've ever been to San Diego, but there's that Balboa Park area where like the zoo and stuff is. Well, San Diego Museum of Art is there, and like the Timken Museum's right across. And it was just like, did not plan this at all. We went in there, and there was like a Spanish Golden Age Baroque tour going through.
Oh,
and
wow.
It was amazing. And I got busted like 10 times taking pictures. I was like the country bumpkin with a camera, like didn't realize that you're not supposed to take pictures of the Van Gogh. You don't take pictures of the Rembrandt.
Yeah, you single-handedly ruined the Van Gogh.
Yeah, pretty much. I did have an old lady called me a rube or some weird old-timey word because I was standing too close to one of the paintings, but
I have no clue what that means.
Yeah, I don't either. I'm pretty sure it was a rube. But
so I mean, you focus on portraits, right?
Right.
So portraits is your thing, portrait art. So just the person.
Right.
What I like about portraits is that it actually can communicate something unique.
Right.
I mean, if each individual person is unique, then if you're able to capture that person in that moment,
right,
then you're capturing some type of emotion, some type of complex emotion too.
Right.
Which is maybe why people like Mona Lisa so much, because they see something different. They're trying to figure out what that emotion is. But once you get past the technical, I like deconstructing and doing this. Like, what are you trying to do as far as when you're capturing that person?
I'm trying to not suck. That's pretty much it. I'll be honest. I'm not really trying to. I mean, I'll back that up a little bit. Mm-hmm. So, there are quite literally. There's steps. If you want something to look a certain way, like there's ways to do it. Like, you can have the lighting a certain way, or there's all these different technical ways to get a certain look that will be evocative of some emotion or something like that. Personally, I think art becomes magical when that intentionality is taken away and the artist just does their thing, and then it just happens. Great art isn't intentional. Like, people don't go, the people that say, I'm going to make this painting that's epic, this iconic painting, it never happens, because you can't force that. That's sort of like that recipe to get a piece of art, for example, like, so the Mona Lisa or something like that. Yeah, Leonardo da Vinci was a virtuosic genius, or Michelangelo. They were geniuses. But at the same time, there's this, I'm sure, I don't know if you know what imposter syndrome is. I mean, it's this idea that no matter how good you get at something, you always feel like you're faking it, you know? And I think artists feel this. I think people in any industry feel that, or any field of work, I guess you feel that. So when you set out to create art, I think to create something iconic, you need to not think about creating something iconic. Like, you need to just create art.
Sure.
And you're going to do 900 garbage paintings. I quite literally have stacks of old canvases and just garbage.
What you do, what I catch you do is you'll sit down for 4 hours. Mm-hmm. You'll knock out a portrait from beginning to end, and then it seems like you're just done with that now. And I mean, most people, the finished product of what you do, most people would be like, this is the greatest thing I've ever done. But you're just like, this is my morning. I'll come back to it again tomorrow.
Well, you sort of have to do that, because if you don't, it's just like anything. I mean, if you don't put in the time, or if you have like a busy schedule and you don't carve out that time and make a sacrifice in some other area of your life, you're never really going to get proficient at what you're trying to do. And so, like I said earlier, I paint because it's not that I'm trying to express something. it's basically as simple as it's fulfilling for me to figure out how to do something like that.
Right.
And to be able to capture a likeness with this pigment, and what is oil paint is essentially glue. I mean, that's really all it is. That's really all paint really is.
But you are going to communicate something deeper just by mastering those things.
That's
by
what
mastering
I mean.
the pigment, it communicates to people.
That's what I mean. It's sort of like when you hear a song and you can't really tell what the lyrics are, and so you kind of infer what
Pearl
you think
Jam.
they are. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. You kind of infer what you think the lyrics are, and then they mean something to you, and then you read the lyrics and it's like, well, that's not what he was saying, but you still have that memory kind of. That's what art in general, whether it's music or whether it's visual art, I think it's sort of, that's what I meant earlier about the intentionality of making art. You just need to make art, and then there are people that don't like the art I do. I'm sure there's lots of people that don't like the art I do. There's people that don't like Caravaggio or these great masters who I will never be as even close to their level. I know a guy who doesn't like Rembrandt, and Rembrandt is something that, like, how do you not like that? I don't know. It's bizarre. But to the people that do like what you produce, I think that's one of the beautiful things about it is that I think I sold a painting to someone that I didn't want to sell. I was kind of ashamed of it, but they loved it, and they bought it, and it's in their house, and it's something they love. But to me, it was just something that I had in my garbage pile, of stuff that I never wanted anybody to see, but this person happened to like it, and so I sold it. So I mean,
that's great.
Yeah.
So how do you feel about the art scene right now, especially in the last, we'll say 8-9 years? I've seen a lot of changes. Terrain become much bigger.
Right.
What do you see happening?
I think there's a parallel with not only how technically good so many people are. I think it has a lot to do with social media. I know in my other professional industry, the tattoo industry, Instagram and social media in general dramatically changed visual art, no matter what the field or the medium, because you're able to sort of tap into what other people are doing. And if you're careful with it and you don't if you don't obsessively stay on it and like soak in way too much of it, it can really help propel you and inspire you. In some ways, it can also hold you back and kind of squash your creativity, because you'll be sort of measuring what you do by everybody else. I mean, everybody does that to a degree on social media, but art, it's really hard not to do that. So I don't know. I mean, I don't think that's the reason that art has become so amazing. Like, there's just so many good artists. I mean, the standard and the level now in art, like, there's kids who are
at a young
12
age.
years old doing paintings that are just insane, or people that have been tattooing for 2 years doing
I mean, everything is accessible now. Right? So it's almost like a resurgence of skill, because you can hop on YouTube. I don't even want to throw my name in, but I've dabbled in trying to learn how to paint, and I've never talked to anybody about how to paint. I've never interacted with another person who said, this is how you do this brush stroke. I just type in, how do you do brush strokes again? How thick is this supposed to be? And so, you can develop all those skills online. And get feedback from people.
That's the thing. Like I said earlier, with social media, you want to be careful not to invest too much into that, because, or to think that you have a bigger audience than you actually do have. But at the same time, like you said, I mean, you can go on YouTube, there's Skillshare, there's a gazillion online art schools that aren't garbage. They're not like these chintzy stick figure. Like, you will go and take these courses and get critiques from, I mean, I did some training with a few painters that are like world-class artists, over in Europe, and I did that via the internet, you know, via Zoom and stuff like that. So, opportunities I never would have had 15 years ago, even 10 years ago, I think the coronavirus thing is as horrible as it's been for almost everybody. the silver lining for me as an artist, and this sounds terrible saying, but the silver lining has been that a lot of people who had never made content, educational content, were sort of forced to do that because they weren't doing art shows, they weren't doing this, they weren't doing that. So they made a Patreon, they made this, and they started sharing their knowledge. Well, you know, if you're smart, you take advantage of that and you apply it.
And it gets cheaper because they can reach a wider audience.
Exactly,
and all that
exactly.
So you also do, you're Russian Orthodox.
Right.
You do official Russian Orthodox, from what I gather, official Russian Orthodox portraits for the church. Right. Which is its own unique style. Right. Very different from the oil painting portraits that you do. How did you get into that?
That was, I mean, honestly, the oil painting iconography, Orthodox iconography, was the segue sort of into oil painting for me. Partly because in Russia there's I won't go into the long history lesson because most people's eyes glaze over like, huh? And I can talk about that for hours. But anyway, there was a period of time in the Russian Orthodox Church where the iconography, the art that you'd see in the church, was very influenced by the West. And so there was a lot of Western style iconography, and I was always interested in that. And so that's sort of why I got into oil painting. But how I got into iconography was I've been a tattoo artist for 16 years, right? And so when I converted to Orthodox Christianity, iconography is not just pretty pictures in the church. It's part of the theology of the church. It's part of the theology of ancient Christianity all the way back to the time of the disciples, and it's just a really important part of the faith. And so, as an artist, obviously there was something I wanted. That was something I wanted to do. And so, I mean, I was blessed to use a lot of the foundational skills I developed as a tattooer. It really translated into learning how to paint iconography. And then, like I said, that sort of blossomed into oil painting once I got had been doing that for a few years and got a little more confident with painting. So
and you mentioned the tattoo. You work at Anchored Art as
Anchored Art tattoo
artist.
Yep.
Does it translate directly, or do you feel like it's almost a different art form?
Oh, totally. Yeah, I mean, there's a totally different approach, but everything's sort of backwards compatible when it comes to art. There's foundational things that you definitely want to observe. And by oil painting, it's really helped me to, my oil painting has helped my tattooing, and my tattooing has helped my oil painting. In many ways, we don't have enough time to go into all the different ways, but I would say art in general. I mean, I paint in almost every medium, or have painted in almost every medium. Yeah. And all of it, even though the technical application is different throughout each different medium, I'd say that the approach is always the same. The fundamentals are always the same. Sure, with everything. So, and people can book you as well if they're Anchored Art Tattoo. They can go. I'm sure you're booked up for months, but if you want to get them, you can reach out. Last thing. Who's doing good stuff here in town? Who are the artists that you are most excited about? Maybe 3 or 4 people who are just really doing something unique, crushing it in Spokane area. I mean, I would say, I don't know if I have 3 or 4 people because I'm just not connected, I guess. I don't know. I mean,
I love the style of artist you are. You really are just doing your own thing.
Yeah,
but you do have some people. You do have some people.
My friend Daniel, he goes by Godfeedy on social media. If anyone has ever, I don't know, I think it's on 3rd. I think it's at like it's not Union Gospel Mission, but it's one of like the downtown ministry services or whatever. It's pretty iconic now. If you've ever driven around Spokane, you've seen a mural.
Jesus face.
It's the pixelated Jesus face. It's probably his most iconic piece. But he's just this really gifted mural artist, and he's just a solid guy. He's probably one of the most legit, non-pretentious artists I've met in my entire life. He's a great guy. He's doing awesome stuff. And then, honestly, the sort of resurgence in murals that I see in Spokane that weren't here when I lived here years ago before we moved to Seattle. That wasn't a thing, and it's really interesting to see Spokane embrace that across
We've got a
people
lot of
you would
space for it, with all
yeah.
these industrial buildings.
Yeah.
You can't do that in a modern city. There's no space for it.
No, and I really do admire how Spokane in general has sort of welcomed that with open arms. I never hear people complain about it, really. And
no,
so
you don't hear people complain about the murals.
It's beautiful, and
as long as they don't cover up some of our older like advertisements on the brick buildings, because those are special
super cool too.
That's art in its own way, really.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, how can people find you?
Social media. I mean, I'm on Instagram and Facebook. Just my name, Shayne Swenson. There's a Y in my name, so Shayne.
Yeah.
Swenson, and then I have a website. It's still sort of under construction.
Do you commission portrait?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I do. I do commissions. I have kind of a backlog. The stuff I do for my iconography sort of takes. I have to do that before anything else, but I do definitely do portrait commissions. So I love doing those. So
that's awesome. Cool. Well, I appreciate having you on the show. The art scene has been really exciting in Spokane. I mean, it's grown, and we've seen a lot of people like you who are just really talented and finding their voice. And, it's just awesome to see. It's a missing piece in Spokane, I think.
Cool.
And thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for watching this episode of The Pulse. We are where you are. Check us out on any of these other platforms, as well as our website. This show is sponsored by Local 29 Firefighters Union, Homes for You, and Apex Cannabis.